Hello everyone, it's been a long time coming, but I am finally getting to you with a tutorial on how to do the Supernatural Angel effect. I am using After Effects CS6. This should translate still to CC or CS5, maybe earlier versions. I'm not too familiar with those. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to import our footage. I'm going to assume that you know how to do basic functions in After Effects, so I'm not going to spend any time on those. So I'm going to import this angel movie mask, that's my original footage. This romantic blah blah blah, that's my wing. And the supernatural MP3, that is from my original angel effect that I have posted online. And I will include a link to that, and you can rip that audio with a YouTube converter if you want to use that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my angel movie mask footage down to the new comp button, and I'm going to create a new composition, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate that footage, and I'm going to rename the first one top footage. We'll call it top mask footage. That's where our mask is going to be, and we'll rename the bottom one bottom lens flare. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a mask. So this mask, we're going to create around whoever is going to be your angel. Now I'm not doing this perfect because I have already done it, and I'm going to switch. That's what this mask comp folder is over here. I'm going to switch to that here in a little bit, but I'm just kind of doing it for instance on this for now. So just mask around that, close that off. We'll feather that out about a few pixels, 11 pixels or so. Alright, then you're going to want to keyframe your mask. Under the mask path, create a keyframe. And as the footage moves along, you're going to want to move your mask around with the footage. And you can do as much or as little as you want. Obviously, if you do more, it's going to ultimately look better. I'm the worst masker in the world, and I do not have the skill or the patience, so that is why it doesn't look very good. But I'm counting on you guys to do better. Alright, so you're going to do that all the way to the end. So we'll just pretend that we have keyframes all the way to the end. And then we're done with that for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new layer, a new white solid. So layer new solid, it's white. We'll just double check we make comp size. Click OK. Then we're going to bring the opacity down on that so that we can see our eyes. We're going to create masks on the white solid layer around the eyes. So now we have two masks, and I'm going to feather those masks at 4 pixels. Five pixels, whatever. And then we're going to bring the opacity of that white solid layer back up to 60. And then just like with the body, we're going to create a keyframe for the mask path. And as the footage moves, get our selection tool here, we're gonna just move the eyes with it. Now, if you want it to look good, you're gonna want to do a lot more keyframes than I'm doing. This is just a very rough example. I'm kind of counting on whoever's watching this to already have experience with keyframing and be way better at it than me. If you don't have experience with keyframing, there are lots of videos on YouTube about keyframing, so you might want to watch some of those before doing this tutorial. So, and you would do that all the way to the end. Obviously, if you watch this footage, it's not going to follow those eyes very well because there should be a lot more keyframes. But I have already done that to save time, and let's be honest, even that's not very good because I just kind of suck at keyframing and masking. It's not my forte. So the last thing we're going to do before I switch over is we're going to add a lens flare to this bottom layer. So select that bottom layer, Effect, Generate Lens Flare. That is definitely not what we want, so that center I'm going to raise above, and that brings the center to 930 and negative 1689. So now it's up there. I'm going to change the lens, the 35mm prime, that gets rid of that little orange circle there. 0% blend with original, and brightness is going to be about 260. So that's going to bring your light down on you. And now we're going to move on to, let's rename this white solid real quick to eyes. And now I'm going to switch to where I have already keyframed my thing. So as you can see, you can't really tell a difference. My keyframes are a little better. So if you render that out, you can kind of see I'm still not the world's best keyframer. But, so this top mask footage, you should already have your mask on there. Now we're going to duplicate that footage again, but we wanted to wait until we had the mask because we want that mask to be on both of those layers. So it duplicated that. Let's rename that, we'll just call that mask foot 2. And basically that's just creating a mask for each layer of the wings. So now we're going to drag this romantic by darkest hour. We're going to drag one of those between mask foot 2. So you see this layer's got all that text and different things on there. So let's rename that wing. Not there. Let's rename that wing. We'll call this right wing. So technically it is my right wing, even though it's left when we're looking at it. But we'll name this right wing, and we're going to double click and open it in the layer panel. We're going to select our eraser tool, and we're going to erase all this text. Now this is a PNG, so the background was clear. If you used a JPEG or something without a clear background, you'd have a lot more work to do here because you'd be having to erase all kinds of stuff. But that was pretty easy since it's a PNG. Our selection tool, and then we're going to put an effect on this as well. We're going to put a keying effect. So effect, keying, we're going to put a linear color key, and we're just going to key out some white. There's not a lot of white in there. Matching tolerance will be 30. Matching softness 100. And that's just going to make it feather into the background a little bit better. So now we can close that in the layer panel, and you can see that all that text is gone and it's a little kind of clear right here. And we're going to scale that down. I believe about 65% was probably where, yeah. It was 65%, and we'll bring it over here. get your pan behind tool, and you're going to want to bring the anchor point to the back where the wing would be coming out of. Alright, so now the left wing is good for now. Then we're going to Control D to duplicate that. We're going to rename that left wing. We're going to bring that down between the top mask footage layer and the bottom lens flare layer. Right click on that, transform, flip horizontal. There you go. And now we're going to move that out a little bit. Since I'm kind of turned, this wing would show a little bit more than that wing. So we're going to bring the opacity on those down to about 10%. You can't see it now, obviously, but you will when it gets brighter. Maybe bump that up a little bit. Do 15. Our right wing, do that at 15 as well. So now we're going to input our audio. So the MP3 file is right here. We're going to drag that to the bottom layer. Now audio, After Effects is not the best program for audio, but since we're trying to sync this kind of specifically to this audio, it's really the quickest option, at least for these purposes. It's not a long composition. So if we render that out,
I'm an angel of the Lord. Hey, ass butt.
so if you press 0, you can hear the audio. If you do spacebar, you won't be able to hear it. So we've got that rendered out now. And that first lightning bolt is about right here between the 1 and 115 frame.
I'm an angel of the Lord.
So we're going to open up, or click the triangle on your bottom lens flare layer. We're going to bring our cursor to right in between there. And on the lens flare, we're going to do a keyframe for brightness. And that first keyframe, that's going to be 0 brightness, because there's no lightning or light or whatever it is. And then we'll just move 1 frame over, and we're going to put that back at 260. And then here at about the 115, we're going to do another keyframe, keeping it at 260. And then another keyframe just 1 frame over, and that's a 0. And another one just 1 frame over, and that'll be back up to 260. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select these 3 keyframes. I'm going to Control C and Control V. Put them right there. Move my cursor over. Do them right there again. That's just going to give us 3 quick flashes. So it's going to look like this so far.
I'm an angel of the Lord.
And then I'm going to go down here to about the 515 mark. That's going to be about the peak of the power. And so we're going to create another keyframe there. And we're going to bump that all the way up to 300. Yeah, you can see my mask is Not very good. So now,
I'm an angel of the Lord. Hey, ass butt. I'm an angel of the Lord.
so that is, we're done with the lens flare. Now on the eyes, we want those to be exactly the same, their opacity, the same spots as the lens flare. So on their first one, we're going to want that to be 0. And create our keyframe there. And then we'll move it 1 frame just like the lens flare. We'll bump that back up to 60. Then we'll go here and create a keyframe. Go back to 0. 1 frame over again. Back to 60. No, I'm sorry. The first one should be 60. Then the second one should be 0. And then the third one, 60 again. So we have 0 or 60, 0, 60. And then just like before, we're just going to copy those. Paste. Paste again. So now our eyes should flash with our lens flare. Let's see how that looks.
I'm an angel of the Lord.
And then over here with this last keyframe on the lens flare, like before, we're going to bring our opacity, make a keyframe there. We're going to bump our opacity to 100.
I'm an angel of the Lord. Hey, ass butt.
Now our wings, we're going to want to keyframe their opacity. 0. $15. 0. Oh, I did it again. I reversed them. First one right there, and that little 3 should be 15. Then 0. Then 15. And then just like before, I'm going to Control C, Control V, move this down, Control V again. Then on that, we can take all of these, Control C. Back to the beginning. And we just plop those right there on our left wing. And let's see how that looks.
I'm an angel of the Lord.
Alright. So now we got all the flashing done. Now we want our wings to raise and expand. So right here on our last keyframe, we're going to create, let's unlock scale. I'm going to create a keyframe for scale and a keyframe for rotation. And then down here at our last keyframe point that we had for the flare, let's make sure we're lined up. Yep. Going to create another keyframe for rotation and another keyframe for scale. And then you can just kind of play with where you want it to be. So I want probably to be about right there, which that makes me, I'm gonna lower my wings a little bit. Now I haven't created any keyframes for position, so that's a permanent thing from the beginning to the end. And my scale, I'm going to expand the length of them about there. It's going outside my composition, but that's okay. Maybe I'll rotate a little more. So 27 and 70, we'll say 89. And then if we just copy and paste these onto our left wing, I'm going to bump the opacity just to see. So we're going to want to invert these. Negative 65, 65, and this will want to be 0. And then this, down here, we're going to want negative 89 and negative 27. And then I'm also just going to pull that one down like I did the other one. We'll have our wings coming out of shoulders instead of my head.
I'm an angel of the Lord. Hey, ass butt.
And then one more thing to get those wings kind of blended in the background a little bit more. We're going to change the mode. Let's close these up a little bit so it's a little... The mode we're going to change to linear burn. And then we are going to create a track matte. Now if you don't have the track matte or mode option available, you can hit this toggle switches and modes. So if you're seeing that, just hit that and that'll come up. And we're going to create an alpha inverted matte. And we're going to do the same thing with our left wing. So now the lens flare is affecting me, it looks much better. I'm going to go ahead and, never mind.
I'm an angel of the Lord.
And then right here, I'm just going to add a new layer, a new solid. I'm gonna make it black. And right here, we're gonna go from 0% to 100%. We're just gonna cut to black.
I'm an angel of the Lord. Hey, ass butt. I'm an angel of the Lord.
All right. So there you have it, folks. You know, you just go to File, Export, Add to Render Queue. And you render. Feel free to post links in the comments and I will take a look at your work. Hopefully you are a much more patient and skilled masker / keyframer than I am. But I hope you have a lot of fun with this, and I would love to see what you all do. Thanks.